Jim Edwards here for MMALatestNews.com. International Fight Week 2016 and UFC 200 is in the books. I'm joined by Danny Austin of Post Media, Jose Youngs of the MMA Corner, and my colleague, of course, Mr. Matthew Wells, also of MMALatestNews.com. Guys, I just want to get your, first of all, just your initial reactions to what's transpired tonight, UFC 200. Danny, what did you make of the event?
I mean, I think that all around it was a good UFC event. The issue is that it was billed as a blockbuster. I'm trying to think in my head, but I would compare it to like Jurassic World last year. It was a movie where you expected everything to be massive and everything to just be the biggest it could possibly be, and that wasn't the card. That's in part because the UFC lost two main events. They lost Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, and then they lost Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier. But the main event delivered with three of the five fights. Although I don't think that Amanda Nunes beating Miesha Tate was nearly as exciting as we expected it to be, in part because the energy had been drained from the room by the previous two fights. But it was a good card. We saw some big names. The question is if we saw too many big names from the past and not enough young up-and-coming talent that's going to bring fans in for the next 7 years until UFC 300. I don't think it delivered on the promise, and that's kind of all it comes down to for me.
JJ, what did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I remember you and I met up after the fight, and your reaction was just meh, and I agree. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. If it wasn't 200, it would have been a great card. But like you said, like this was billed as a blockbuster, and we lost the one, in my opinion, the most important fight in the UFC, the most competitive. We lost that, and then yeah, Anderson Silva filled in, but like you said, he wasn't training. He had a dad bod. It is what it is. It was a good card, but I was let down just because it was 200. If this was UFC 199 or UFC 201, it would have been a very, very exciting card. And overall, I'd probably give it a 7, 6.5. The Fight Pass prelims were great, 3 first-round knockouts. That set the tone, and then the 2 fights on the main card kind of drains the energy, like you said.
Matt, come on, give me some positives here. What was one thing that really, or maybe someone that really impressed you tonight?
Man, everybody on the entire undercard impressed me tonight. All of those fights were great. Not only the Fight Pass prelims, but even the Fox Sports 1 prelims had great fights. And it did kind of drop off a little bit in the main card, but that's where you had all of the scrambling to get things together and all of the shifts in the fights at the last moment. So it's not really a surprise that the main card wasn't as solid as the undercard, because the undercard was set from the get-go, and those fights delivered more than what I expected. So, you know, all in all, I think it was a great event, considering everything that happened with the main event, with Anderson Silva filling in. I think it was great. I think they did the best that they could with what they had to work with.
Now, one guy who hasn't been mentioned yet is Brock Lesnar. Danny, what did you make of Brock tonight?
I mean, Brock looked great, and based on every single thing that he said in the post-fight press conference, I think we're going to see Brock again. The issue is that Brock looked like a little bit cautious. I genuinely think that if a guy with Brock's talent for taking guys down gets someone like Mark Hunt down, he should be able to do more damage than he did. I understand why he just went to the ground again and again. I actually think that his performance was pretty impressive, except that it came right after we watched 3 rounds of Daniel Cormier taking Anderson Silva down and grinding him to the ground. We got 6 straight rounds of effectively the same thing, and it's absolutely incredible that Brock Lesnar did what he did after 5 years out. That doesn't mean that it's a great co-headliner for what's supposed to be the biggest card in UFC history.
Yeah, and Jose, I guess, do you think at the end of the day, was this an event which was worthy of being the historic UFC 200?
That's tough. I think it was, and then Jon Jones fell out. It definitely had the big event feel. When I walked up to the arena, I mean, the lines were around the building already. The buzz was there. I mean, I walked down the strip to get here, and I didn't see many people on the strip, and then as soon as I turned the corner, it was just a flood of people. So it definitely had that big event feel coming in. And then at the end, I didn't see any disappointed faces, because at the end of the day, this arena is beautiful. It was a great atmosphere, great prelim fights, and say what you want about the Brock Lesnar fight, but just seeing Brock Lesnar do what he does is is breathtaking as it is. I mean, just seeing him take Mark Hunt down, fail, and then Mark Hunt turns around and Brock Lesnar clears 5 feet of canvas in about 2 seconds and is all of a sudden in mount. I mean, who else can do that in the heavyweight division? So say what you want, but watching Brock Lesnar come back after 5 years and do that to Mark Hunt, who's coming off knockouts like that, it was an impressive. And yeah, I would say if it had a big event feel.
Matt, we haven't mentioned Jose Aldo versus Frankie Edgar yet. What did you make of Aldo's performance tonight?
Well, he didn't look soft, Joe. Aldo returned to the same form that we know Jose Aldo as. You know, outside of the Conor McGregor thing, Jose Aldo looked incredible. Against Frankie Edgar, he completely shut him down. Anytime Frankie got in too close of a range, that knee was there, counter combinations were there all night long. I scored it a complete shutout for Jose Aldo. Other guys were giving Frankie a round or two, but I just didn't see it that way. He looked incredible, man. So Jose Aldo returning to form, one of the biggest stories of the night for me. Interim champion now, could be the real champion, could be seeing Conor McGregor if he does go back down. We'll see how that fight plays out the second time. If Conor does go back down, no fluke 13-second knockout.
Yeah, for sure. And Danny, it has really been one of the most incredible weeks of mixed martial arts. Now it's all said and done. What's your biggest takeaway, I guess, from this week in UFC 200?
I tried not to be too positive, but it's that MMA is here and MMA is established, and that we've been coming off a really weird couple months. There have been issues between the media and the UFC. The entire Conor issue with not showing up for the press conference back in April was really bizarre. And then they put on 3 nights of fights. I would argue that none of them are particularly spectacular. But I'm not seeing on Twitter the F the UFC stuff. I'm seeing fans appreciating what we got. I'm seeing fans understanding that you can put together a card with basically all of the biggest names in the UFC, and if it doesn't deliver quite what we expect, no one is, coming out with their pitchforks and saying that Dana sucks and all this. Right now, the UFC can survive a card that doesn't quite live up to the hype, because we know that we've got 201 next month. That's got Robbie Lawler and Tyron Woodley, great fight, and then we've got 202. We've got so much ahead of us, and there's so many exciting fighters. And I think that this card was a bummer. It was a bit of a letdown. I think that they should have been younger fighters, but I also don't think it matters. I still had a great time covering this event, and I think that the fans are able to pick and choose what they enjoyed and leave the fights that they didn't like and celebrate the fights that they did. And that's a really encouraging moment for a sport that is still so young and that we should not expect to deliver every single card.
For sure. And Jose, I want to hear off you. What do you reckon was the fight of the week?
Oh man, fight of the week. I mean, it's hard not to say Eddie Alvarez is one of the biggest stars. I mean, we all know the history of Eddie Alvarez, and I understand a lot of people that were here are just getting into MMA because of maybe Conor McGregor and the Ronda Rouseys. But I mean, Eddie Alvarez called himself king of the underground. He was a Bodog fight champion, and we know what that is, and I guarantee you there are fighters in the UFC who don't know what a Bodog fight champion is, and Eddie Alvarez is one. He even fought for the WAMA title when that was a thing. He fought for the WAMA title when that was a thing. So Eddie Alvarez, definitely the biggest star. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, another great star. That you could make an argument that was the greatest women's fight in UFC history. I know Miesha Tate versus Holly Holm is still fresh in people's minds, but I think that was the best. JJ defended. I thought Claudia won the first. I thought she was going to easily win the rematch. JJ proved me wrong, so I would definitely have to say Eddie Alvarez and Joanna Jędrzejczyk are the 2 biggest stars.
Nobody going to take this belt away from me. Matt, come on, just sum us up. What your overall perception of the week, and what are you going to take away from Las Vegas?
What I'm going to take away is 3 what I thought were solid events, 2 new champions, incredible performances, every single night. 200, maybe it wasn't what everyone expected out of 200, but like I said, all things considered, man, it was a great weekend of fights. We had some great memories. just the whole John Jones saga, Daniel Cormier, Anderson Silva thing, that's gonna last for, in my mind, for quite some time now. You know, Daniel Cormier's reaction on that episode of Embedded where he just starts stomping his foot, that frustration, man, I felt that. I felt his frustration when that happened. But Daniel Cormier is a good dude. That is another thing that will stick with me, him getting booed after that fight. Man, he deserves cheers. He deserves nothing but cheers. So, Daniel Cormier, hats off to you.
Cheer, Daniel Cormier. Anyway, guys, well, what a week. I don't quite know how to sum up myself, but there we have it. As I said earlier, UFC International Fight Week 2016 is in the books. I've been Jim Edwards. He's been Danny Austin. He's been Jose Youngs. And he has been Matthew Wells. We're signing off for this long, long week.